example of Bad Bunny, where he went into a few years ago where he was bagging groceries. And then just last weekend, he just pursued the NFL halftime show where he was well known. The NFL, the stage is actually a good platform to present and build your audience and following. The what is what Bad Bunny was actually pursuing. His goal in life was to bring the world as a message for all that we're all one. We're all Americans, based with him being Puerto Rican, and naming all the different countries and combining it as America. And how does that look like? Because there's controversies and how he presented it, because his song was all in Spanish, but then towards the end, he said, "God bless America." But if we are all one, why does he have to present the song in a language that was his native versus most of the people around the world understand English? And different platforms, different individuals of all races, specifically those of the older generation, they were disappointed that they couldn't understand him, and even those who were Italians, they couldn't understand what he was saying, because a lot of it was more slang, and it presented more of a modern, up to date of how people interact, how people present themselves, and the dance was more inappropriate when it comes to like individuals who had children who didn't want their 3-year-olds seeing what was presented there. And so there's a lot of controversies of depending on where one's spiritual growth is in God, and that alignment, it actually created more chaos. When he was trying to present his message, he was trying to present it in an upbeat, in a more energetic way, in a more way that we can connect all as a nation, but it didn't come off that way. In other cultures, like the Italians and some even Puerto Ricans, were saying that it didn't really match and really align and really represent who they were. So it all depends where a person is at in the perspective of seeing it. And so in the what, Bad Bunny was actually chasing that dream of not just to become a big name for himself, but to bring the world into an alignment as that we can work together. Again, as other statistics presented it, just because it was the ratings were high when it comes to the views, when it comes to the deeper angle of seeing all these ratings of what people actually voiced in the viewing of the NFL halftime, they were disappointed. And so anyway, so Bad Bunny in that dream that he was pursuing is more of a vein of like the other verses that we were, the verse 1 and verse 2 of Ecclesiastes that we were looking into. It was more of vein, and individuals who saw that, who they expressed that they were not impressed with how he presented their culture. They were not impressed with how the dance was or the whole layout, and again, the language was in Spanish and it was in slang, which a lot of people were not familiar with. And he was saying, if you don't know what I was speaking, learn the language. And so a lot of American citizens were saying, well, this is America. Most of the world speaks English. And so it's like, if you're going to be presenting the Americans, why speak in a native tongue that isn't originally of, American, of English? And so again, when it comes to the controversy behind that, it's really in the alignment of what is the order, because when it comes to him trying to present it, there was this ego, there was this vein of how he was presenting it, and just the way he carried himself, the way even the individuals who participated in the dance and the song, you could see in the audience, several people in the audience were just like really trying to understand what was happening, understand what he was trying to say, even though they felt the rhythm and the energy. The words did not match with what their understanding of the presentation. And so seeing the world of how the world actually responded, it was more chaos than order. And so for him, again, as you can see that his anybody who comes into a country that speaks mostly English, or the whole world as a whole, you're trying to bring all these nations together. And like, I believe there are like 130 million people that was watching it. And so the profit, what is the profit of all that toil under the sun? The profit is building again the brand that he is pursuing in life, is to bring out the music of what he was passionate about. And in the profit of building that, there's a lot of fast energy because you're chasing the money in the material world. There's the chase. And a lot of people are become drained in that angle of this lineage way of pursuing without the connection with God. And building your name, your brand, or is it the chase and pursuing that mission, that vision that God had given you? And because from this angle, when you're chasing, it's a bit more uplifting, and you don't lose that energy. You can have a few hours of sleep and continue going forward. Of course, you can do the same thing from this angle as you chase that dream in a more materialistic way, but in the end, you do end up losing that stamina to go forward because you realize all of it that you've pursued under the sun is not going to be uh, worth it. There isn't much value in it because, again, as we studied in verse 1, verse 2, when it comes to chasing everything under the sun, is nothing is new, and is just a waste of time and a waste of energy, like what King Solomon had discovered. Not a lot of you know, like back then, 3,000 years ago, I think it was, when he had ruled the earth of where he was at in his kingdom. He had, I believe, close to 200 wives, and he actually presented that angle of when each wedding that had occurred, he had the nations, that's when they signed their treaties. That's when they made their contract. And so that's when the nations became more at peace with one another. And so that's where King Solomon embraced that type of mission that he carried, that he had obtained the inheritance from his father, where his father, King David, had mostly had these nations, countries, more like in submission and followed, but it wasn't out of respect. It was more out of fear. And so King Solomon, he brought more of peace by marrying the different women of different countries, of the different nations. And so because of that, he also obtained a lot of materialism and the religions that these women carried from the countries they were at, and they brought it into his kingdom, which is what caused him to lose track of God. And because he became more materialistic as time went on. as years went on, he became more like materialistic and more emotionally involved in the woman, in their gods, in their religions, that he lost his own identity in God, his own religion, and his own relationship. And so that's what happens when a person more in a field of trying to build one's brand, if they don't slow down and take a breath and step back and connect with family and friends, and that chasing continues, they will lose themselves in the material world. And half, that's where a person will have that. They'll lose that connection, and that's where they'll feel lost, like what King Solomon did and went through when it came to discovering and realizing that all of it was just all out of vanity. And so how does that look like when it comes to Bad Bunny, when he had went to the NFL and presented his songs and the dance that he had created with the team that he had put together? How did it look like on your end? What did you see, the vanity and the way it was presented, or was it all? Did you see a good balance of who he was? Half, and having all of it and chasing it, you can definitely get lost. It's interesting when it comes to man, like what profit hath a man? Man, here it's lowercase. This lowercase you would see as that it is more materialistic of this world. And so it's not godly centered, and it definitely is of living in this world, living where you're getting lost into the materialisms of life. And so let's just say materialism, material, old material. So in the material world of life, there's that physical. In the physical, there's a lot of, when you focus on it, of the physical, of the material world, there's a lot of animalistic tendencies, of animalistic natures that comes out. When Bad Bunny presented his song and it was all in Spanish, individuals who were upset about it, they presented it that it was like President Trump, that it was the worst halftime show ever. And when it comes to other individuals, they were disappointed. They presented it in a more genuine way, like Trump, that individuals were just disappointed in how the dances were. People said it was intrusive, the presentation and the dances, intrusive. The individuals of parents who had children were not impressed with how the woman and the men were interacting with one another as the song continued, the songs of the whole stage. So how did you feel when you watched Bad Bunny? Did it make you upset? Did it uplift you? Did you just not like mind that you didn't understand the lyrics because it wasn't English? And or were you disappointed and you're like trying to understand what he was saying, but even though the rhythm was there, were you more into the rhythm and the energy in what he was presenting? And so anyways, and so as a man, as anyone who doesn't have that relationship with God or who doesn't have a connection, when everything is chased in our world, and individuals are chasing that passion in life, and it's all linear, and say this is the sun, and everything is chased under the sun. It's like all linear in this world that we live in. If it's all linear and there isn't that alignment with God, if they don't have that alignment with God as they're pursuing that dream, they will become more disordered inside. They'll present a chaotic way of their life of because what we mirror inside, what we have inside ourselves in our inner world will mirror our environment. And so as you can see in our world, because a lot of individuals are not in alignment with God, we will present that type of chaos as a person continues to pursue things in life under the sun as the world revolves. And when it comes to just pursuing things and you have that alignment with God, you'll be able to understand and step back and see, oh, Bad Bunny he was trying his best. He was presenting in his language and hoping that the world would understand where he was coming from. But it went the other way, where there was much more controversies and more polarizing the two of the different nations and the right and the left and so forth, versus individuals who don't have that alignment with God. They will see and they will react and they will have and participate of all, and that goes back to the pursuing things under the sun. His labor, that is again pursuing things. What is that labor? And as you're pursuing and your mission in life or your passion in life, are you in alignment with God? Are you continuing to go forward and have that communion and that prayer as you go forward? Or are you in this rat race as you're pursuing that thing and you're not hearing or reading the room? You're not pausing yourself and just slow down and smell the flowers. And so in the labor, it'll reflect how we are internally, and it'll, if we don't slow down, that internal part will blow up one day. And if you don't have that connection with God and you continue to go forward, you will have that type of disconnect in life, and you'll realize that everything that you pursued in life and all those years and decades of hard work, you'll realize you're not happy. You'll be disappointed. And again, like we spoke about and discussed in the other two verses, verse 1, verse 2, of everything, like all is vanity. So it's good to have a relationship with God as you continue in life. Based on the discernment, as you do have that alignment with God and you're able to discern other spiritual growth in God, you'll be able to see that if they don't reflect of what they teach and what they say, and it doesn't reflect of how they walk it doesn't match their actions and their words, they are really in unalignment with the Creator, with God, with Jesus. And so when it comes to Bad Bunny and discerning where he's at, you can tell he is much more in that phase in life, in his where he's at in chapter of his life. He is much more ingrained in the world, what versus in that connection, because of in that connection with God, I mean, because he could have presented his music more in English, so there could have been more peace throughout the world. Because right now it's polarized, and right now there's a separation of these countries. When you're looking at other news resources, not just yellow journalism, where it's just bringing you what you want to hear, and then when it comes to just his way of trying to bring the world together, he could have tuned in a bit more to present the dances in a more holistic, more genuine, uh, traditional way, or in a more pure way versus of how the dancers were and how, like you would see in any type of club, an adult bar club. And so it's like, where is it at when it comes to that angle of presenting your message? Are you trying to bring the world more in the angle of individuals who hang out at bars and who hang out in drug atmospheric ways of interacting, or is it in parties that is more in a rebellious actions of doing things, or will it fall more in a family oriented and angle of more pure energy where there isn't this sexual energy that is an interchange, which is what Bad Bunny had presented. So so as you dive into and really start studying and individuals and where they're at, you'll start to see, as you become more in alignment with God, you'll start to see where they're at, and you'll start to understand where individuals are at when it comes to their voice and presenting what they were disappointed in Bad Bunny, which he take these two together, and when it comes back to what Bad Bunny was chasing in life and pursuing, and his goal in the NFL, his message. So which he taketh under the sun. That mission, that his goal of trying to bring the world together, and the message, the disalignment of how he presented it didn't match to his expectations. But then on a different angle, because he presented himself in a more, I would have to say, arrogant way, that if you don't understand the language, learn it. And so if you're going into a country and you want to work there and you want to understand the people, you would have to learn it. But he's coming into America, even though he is part of Puerto Rico is part of America. The the angle of how he came in is bringing his culture into America. And of course, America is a melting pot, and it's where we all share um, our culture and our upbringing. But when it comes to the whole of really bringing the whole world together, it's like, what is a commonality for the whole world to really understand, which is English. In every country, they, like, for instance, in my country, in the Philippines, the dialect that I grew up with, it's one of the 2,000 dialects that I grew up with is Papampangan and or Pampango. And so the more common one in the Philippines is Tagalog, which is in alignment, like it's the same like the English language. So in the Philippines, even though there's all these people in different islands, and the main one that where Manila is at, individuals from each islands have to learn Tagalog to understand so you can communicate with other individuals. So if you grew up with a different dialect, you would have to learn Tagalog. And so it's the same thing. So you're coming into a bigger continent in the Philippines. It's like the island. You have to learn Tagalog versus bringing your own dialect into the country, into the main island, and expect people to understand you. It's like, where does that fine line cross, and where do you draw it? Where do you actually step over and meet the people halfway? Because that's what Bad Bunny did not do. He did not meet people halfway by presenting his presentation, his song in English, and for the whole world to understand the message, not just the energy behind it. And so the message behind it, it was a disalignment. Disalignment. And the way he presented his message, it did not go well. Where is it? Are you asking too much? For if you have your own dialect and you go to the main island and you're asking for the whole island to understand your dialect when everybody is actually familiar with Tagalog. And so in the US, in North America, and other parts of the countries of the world, they all are familiar with English. And so taketh, this is where he assumed, and he was embracing in his own version. Bad Bunny was taking his own version of how he wanted to present his message to the world and how he wanted to uplift the society and the nations together to work as one. So he was taking it more out of vein in this angle. He was taking it more as in this way of not in an alignment with God. And so taketh, lowercase t, that is more in his own version of what he thought and what his perception was and assumption. So under the sun, under here again is you're going through life in this linear way. And if you're just having this narrow path of chasing your passion in life and you don't have that connection with God, you will eventually just fall apart. And you will eventually just not have this grounding space if you have no relationship with God. And everything that you pursue in life, whether you become a CEO of an organization, a president, a founder of something in life, once you reach that multi-million stand of income and pursuing all those things that you've always wanted, what is it going to be in the end? Are you going to be at peace without God? Are you going to be at peace if you have that, if you don't have that alignment? And it's always good to have that connection. Again, under the sun is just going back in full circle of what we discussed. Thank you again for joining me here as we have studied in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 3. And what does it look like when you're pursuing things under the sun and there's no relationship with God and you're just going through the rat race of pursuing your dream? And thank you for joining me here. And I'll see you in the next presentation when we dive into word for word of the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1 and verse 4. And God bless.